Hello everybody and welcome to another video here. So today I'll be covering the ki61, all the variants to be clear. So what I wish to cover today in this video is the following. Brief history and historical fun facts, usage in battle, what the ki61 can do, and what belts to use. So the thing is with the belts, they're a little weird, especially since the Japanese 20mm cannons on these things aren't exactly the best. So here we go with the historical facts. So this ki61, or the first variant, the Ko one, it was a general purpose fighter introduced in 1942. Its first battle or real operational service began in early 1943 during the New Guinea campaign. The Americans found out about this thing when they tried to outrun it like they did for the Zeros. Well, they learned the hard way that they could no longer do that because this fighter was just about as fast as anything the Americans had in the Pacific campaign. And now another fun fact about this airplane was that the Americans often confused this fighter with the Machi C202 or the BF-109, primarily because of the similar air filter thingies on the bottom of it, and then that little thing on the side of the engine. I think that would be the supercharger, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway. Alright, on to the next topic. Well, I will be skipping topic number 2 and moving right on to topic number 3. We'll go ahead and cover what this airplane can do. So, what it can do is the following. The ki61 Ko has two 12.7s and two 7.7s. The 12.7s are going to be on the nose and the 7.7s are going to be on both wings. So, your top speed is 590, pretty good for 2.7. Your turn time is 19.8, which is mediocre. And your climb rate is 11.6, which is, it's decent compared to the rest of the fighters you'll be fighting. Now, the next variant, the ki61 Otsu. Its climb rate is 11 seconds, a little slower because of its added weapon, because this variant gets 4 12.7 machine guns rather than the 2. And its turn time is 20.3 seconds rather than the 19.8 seconds of the Ko variant. Its top speed is also a little slower due to a heavier airplane. Now on to the third variant, the ki61 Hei. Now the Hei has much better firepower. Its climb rate and turn time are a little slower. Its max speed is increased due to a slightly better engine. Now this one carries two MG151s on the nose and two 12.7s on, correction. The two 20s are going to be on the wings and the two 12.7s are on the nose. Much better than the other two variants. Now, in a dive, it does perform really well, and with your combat flaps, you can outturn most American fighters, which isn't that much of a challenge anyway. Now, on to the fourth variant. This variant of the ki61 would have to be a ki61 Tei. Now, this variant is an interceptor, so what this can do is get a 1,000-meter head start and climb. So you're probably going to get around, 3,000, 4,000 tops. Still not above the enemy airplanes, but it'll give you enough room to boom and zoom. So this variant has got the 20mm Ho-5 cannons on the nose, and then on the wing you have your 12.7 Ho-103 machine guns. Now this variant is a little slower for some reason. I am not sure. It's 580 versus 581 on the other one. And you got a turn time of 21 seconds. Climb rate is 11.9, a little better than the last variant. Now the next variant, the fifth one, is going to be a ki61-2, which is the best modification you can get of it. This variant features an upgraded engine, so you're going to be faster. Your top speed is 625 kilometers per hour. Your turn time is 20 seconds, and your rate of climb is 12.8 meters per second. Now, you get the same weapons as their previous modification, but you just get more ammo for your 20s. Therefore, you can shoot it more and be less accurate. And maybe, if you're lucky, get more kills. Now, for the bombs, same bombs as the rest of the modifications, except the Ko, which doesn't get any, unfortunately. One of the most important things to be mindful of when playing the ki61 is exactly what your airplane can do and what the enemy is capable of. So, for starters, we'll start off with the ki61 Ko variant. So the Co can outmaneuver the P-40, the P-400, the early Corsairs, and the Wildcats with no problem. Although I'd recommend using your combat flaps if you have them. It'll make the turn fight go quicker. Now, if you come across an F-2A or a P-36 or a P-39, you're probably going to want to come down from them from the roof. Get them from above. And I would only recommend turn fighting them if you use your combat flaps and have the speed advantage. Otherwise, they're going to outmaneuver you without a problem. Now onto the ki61 Otsu. Now that variant is, well, doesn't turn as quickly. You'll have to make use of those combat flaps quite a bit. Now you can outturn the P-400s, P-40s, Corsairs, Wildcats, Hellcats, and just about most American fighters, especially the P-51. You can outmaneuver that thing as well, which comes in handy. And then there's the P-39s. You're probably not going to outmaneuver those. Just be careful. Now, if you do come across one, try and get it from above and behind. And when you use your combat flaps, do not go faster than 450 kilometers per hour, because if you do, you'll lose them. And now, for the ki61 Hey. Now, that variant is primarily a boom and zoom fighter. It does not turn very well. Now, the exception to that rule would be if you're in a dive and have the speed advantage. Then you become very maneuverable. You can outturn a lot of fighters that way. Now, that would be the only variant that can actually shred a IL-2 in one pass. So what you're going to do is boom and zoom. Climb as high as you possibly can. Now, if there's clouds, get into the clouds. And just stay right there, and then if someone passes below you, then you just boom and zoom them, smash them, get back up there. Unless, of course, you find a whole bunch of ground pounders, and in that case, have a good breakfast, because you're going to shred them all. Provided you hit, unlike what you see over here in this video. I missed a whole bunch of my shots. So, what you want to do is avoid turn fighting just about anything. Unless, of course, it's like an American P-51 or a Corsair or something like that. Those are the aircraft you can turn fight. Oh yeah, and P-47s too, you can outturn those. There's nothing better than bullying those things in Pacific maps. Now for the ki61 Tay. That variant is an interceptor, so you get the altitude advantage when you start off. You start off 1,000 meters, 1,500 above everybody else. Now you would be wise to use that to climb as high as you possibly can. Now if you're fighting the Americans, you can usually get around 4,000 to 5,000 in the Pacific maps, and you aren't usually going to be above the P-47s. That way you can boom and zoom them and rip them out of the air. Now with the ki61-2, that's pretty much the same tactic. Climb as high as you possibly can. If there's clouds, climb to the bottom of the cloud cover and boom and zoom those beneath you. Or if it's a Pacific map, climb as high as you humanly can. And then boom and zoom the American fighters. There's nothing better than bullying those P-47s. It's just satisfying. But bear in mind, it only takes one American tracer to set you on fire, so just be careful. And now we move on to topic number 4. This topic will cover the belts, and what belts you should use for each airplane. So here we go. For the ki61 Co variant, you're going to want to use your stealth belts for the 7.7s, and then air targets or universal for your 12.7s on the nose. Now for gun conversions, you're going to want to set it to 800 with vertical targeting. So now the way you'll use these is you'll pay attention to where your 50s go, and generally that is also where your 7.7s will go as well. Now, for the next variant, the ki61 Otsu. Now that variant has 4 12.7s instead of 2 7.7s and 2 12.7s on the nose. So in that case, you're just going to use either air target belts or universal, depending on what you're fighting. If you're fighting Americans or lightly armored fighters, you can stick with the air targets. If it's something like an IL-2 or heavily armored fighters, you're going to want to use those universal belts since they have the armor-piercing capabilities. Now for the ki61 Hey. The ki61 Hey has 2 12.7s on the nose and 2 MG151s on the wings. Now in that case, I would recommend taking air targets for both cannons. Well, I'm calling them cannons. They're not technically both cannons, but I'm calling them cannons anyway. So you're going to boom and zoom, get behind and just dive on an IL-2 or any other aircraft for that matter, and quick burst will shred them. That's the power of an MG151. Now on to the Tay variant. Now with this variant, what you're going to want to do is take either ground targets or tracers for the 20s, and then stealth belts for your 12.7s on the wings. The reason for that is your 12.7s have armor-piercing rounds, just straight-up armor-piercing, which is something you really need, especially when you come against those American heavily armored fighters. Now, your ground target belts are 3 armor-piercing, then 1 HE. That would come in handy, especially for those P-47s. So what you're likely going to do with those belts is put holes in things. You're not going to be able to destroy anything very lightly armored, like a big bomber or something. So bear in mind, if you're going to try and go do a pass on a bomber, you're just going to put a lot of holes in it. Maybe take out a few gunners, but that's just about it. Now, if you do want to fight bombers, take the universal rounds. Those will do wonders. Now, if you want to fight IL-2s or something heavily armored, take those tracer rounds. Those are full, straight-up AP. That's what you want to do. And as, for this airplane, just like the other ones, except the Hay variant. The Hay variant is the only one you won't want vertical targeting on. The Hay, just as the other variants, 800-meter gun conversions and vertical targeting. It'll help you aim your 20s and 12.7s. Now for the ki61 too. It's the same as the Tay. Armor-piercing belts, as in just ground targets or tracers for your 20s. Or if you want to kill bombers, take the universal. And then you got your stealth 12.7s on the wings. So as you see here in this video, those are my ground targets belts. As you see, they didn't do very much to that bomber. I would have had better luck if I took the HE. And as usual, you want your 800-meter gun conversions and vertical targeting. That way you'll know where your 12.7s are going, even though you'd be using a stealth belt. And now we go back to topic number 2. What to do with it. So, the way you want to play this airplane is primarily a boom and zoom fighter and a high altitude interceptor. That's what it was built for. So, whenever you can, climb as high as humanly possible. Now, try and be above everything. Now, if you're facing the Russians, they'll outclimb you without a doubt. So I wouldn't bother. If you're facing the Russians, I'd climb to 1,500 to 2,000, then bully the ground pounders. That's most likely the best way you're going to be able to do anything or get anything done. Now, if it's a Pacific map, climb as high as you can, get above the Americans, and then boom and zoom to P-47s, but only if you're above them. Now, if they're above you, you're pretty much dead. And whatever you don't go head on with them. Just don't. I mean, don't. It'll end terribly. Trust me, I tried. Now, if you're in a Pacific map and you need to land to get more ammo or bombs, you have carriers. Unfortunately, you don't have a tailhook or are carrier capable. So what you're going to want to do is belly land the airplane at speeds you don't want to go any faster than like 185. That's the speed you want to touch down at the carrier. Because if you go any faster like I did in this video here and closer to the end, well, I went off the other end because I didn't slow down fast enough, or slow enough. I would landed at the speed of, I think it was like 210 kilometers per hour, and I went right off the other end. It didn't matter. So you gotta be slow as humanly possible. Just about stall speed when you touch down. Then what'll happen is, you'll rearm and spawn in the air. Now if you do come across some airplanes like a Spitfire, you're not gonna outturn it, you're not gonna outrun it. So your best bet is to go head on and hope for the best. And then run. Hopefully you injured the Spitfire and he ain't gonna be able to catch you after that. That's usually the way they go. Now if it's a Yak 3 and he's trying to turn fight you, don't let him. Go head on and then run. Because your wings will last longer than his. His will rip before yours. I think it rips around 680 or something. You can go 750 without a problem. Anyway, this will conclude my video, and until next time, thank you for watching.